the core issue here, and we think the issue of utmost importance, not only to Ripple, but of the entire industry, is whether or not the digital asset standing alone can be an investment contract and therefore a security. And the judge unequivocally, without hesitation, clearly stated that XRP in and of itself is not an investment contract and therefore cannot be a security. And we think that ruling basically blows an entire regulation by enforcement campaign of the SEC out of the water. What she said was, I need to look at each of the different buckets of distribution separately. And the SEC themselves divided the buckets of distribution into three categories. The first one being programmatic sales, which are sales on exchanges, the blind bid-ask sale between a buyer and a seller, and one doesn't know the identity of the other. And for the reasons we've talked about, the judge said that doesn't satisfy the Howey test. She looked at other distributions. Those are the distributions that I described earlier, developer grants and charitable contributions. And she said, in that case, you don't even get past the first prong of Howey because there's no investment of money. And then there was a third prong called institutional sales. And she looked at some of the early sales of XRP by Ripple in 2014, 15, 16, 17 directly to institutional buyers. And she said in that case, if she looked at all of the surrounding kind of facts and circumstances of those sales, which were embodied in a contract, she did see an investment of money in a common enterprise and the patina of promises of Ripple to that institutional buyer. And in that case, she said, I do see the attributes of an investment contract in those cases. So I don't view that as a split decision because, again, what she did was, we believe, apply the Howey test as faithfully as she could. And she found those instances in which the test was satisfied. And she found those instances in which she felt the test was not satisfied. And I think, again, the SEC doesn't like that because although they claim to be applying the Howey test faithfully, they don't want a facts and circumstances test. They want this broad brush application, but Howey doesn't allow for a broad.
Is XRP destined to replace Bitcoin? One of the reasons XRP has done so well despite regulatory uncertainty is that people have realized Ripple has worked with regulators and we have worked with regulated institutions like banks. You want to know if XRP will replace Bitcoin. It's important to keep the big picture in mind, especially on days like today, because if XRP have worked with the system to solve this problem, and it's a problem measured in the trillions of dollars, most companies in the world are SMEs, and they make up a huge part of cross-border payments, amounting to over $17 trillion annually. If you believe what you read on Twitter, the FOMC meeting notes were as follows. There will be no recession in 2023. They will be harsh on inflation, etc. The minutes from the Federal Open Market Committee meeting showed that most participants continue to see significant upside risk to inflation, which could require further tightening of monetary policy, and that some poors on the streets were complaining about $8 egg prices like I was there. This was a bullish sign, but it turns out that this was just an aggregate response from, who knows? Man, I genuinely feel for the typical American because I remember when a G-Wagon cost around 100 bands, and now it's almost double that, but yet $10 seems like a lot of pointless grumbling. Let's discuss the recent price of XRP as reported by John Deaton on Twitter. XRP smashed through the initial level of resistance represented by the aforementioned 2 5-year trend line only to be rebuffed by the 5-5-year trend line. John Deaton notes that once this massive 5.5-year resistance is broken, he expects the next move to be very significant in the meantime. However, be prepared to buy lower. He says he is loading up on this next move down. If it comes in the next coming months, saying that the symmetric triangle, if it plays all the way out, would end mid-2024. So there may be plenty of time to accumulate before the next impulse move. And if we look here at XRP and BTC, it's a similar story, rejected at this multi-year resistance, and now settling back into this golden pocket between the 618 and the 0.7865 levels. Here's a little short-term perspective from the XRP captain on how the price could move into September XRP. If this plays out, XRP can hit $1.30 before the end of next month.
Coin like USDC, for example, that Coinbase and Circle have done. I think that is interesting in mitigating volatility, but you still have to go from dollar to peso. Right. So at some point you have a bridge. Somebody has to bridge that. And in effect, what Ripple's doing is, let's make XRP the most efficient, the most liquid, and the easiest to bridge by selling effectively the connectors on both ends, selling APIs to allow people to connect to both ends of that. If we have hundreds of banks interconnected to use XRP for that, I think that bodes well for the liquidity of XRP.
It's basically who has the most liquidity is going to win this game.
I mean, that's what I believe. I think different people believe different things, but that's okay.
You have all these financial institutions who are now using XRP. It sounds like more people are using it, and yet the price has declined this year recently. Why do you think that is?
I think if I could predict the price of crypto, I would not be here. I mean, the crypto markets are hard to predict for sure. In many cases, even now, the altcoin basket is very correlated. And so when I say altcoin, I mean everything but Bitcoin. Bitcoin has outperformed the rest of the crypto industry this year. What that looks like in the future, hard to predict. I think over the long term, meaning 2, 3, 4, 5 years, that correlation, I think, will start to reflect those that have a real use case. I'm very enthusiastic about not just what Ripple is doing, but the community of companies working around the XRP ledger. Coil is a very interesting company doing something around micropayments using XRP, where you really can't use something like Bitcoin.
From the legend Stuart Alderodi, we oppose the SEC's request for an interlocutory appeal because there is no extraordinary circumstance here that would justify departing from the rule requiring all issues as to all parties to be resolved before an appeal. Followed by Brad Smith, we agree with the rule that all issues as to all parties must be resolved before an appeal. While the SEC persists in its ridiculous claim that Chris and I acted recklessly in believing that XRP is not a security, Judge Torres wasted no time in granting the SEC's request to us wasted no time in granting the CC's request to file an interlocutory appeal. The SEC's motion is due tomorrow, August 18th. On September 1st, Ripple will file its opposition, and on September 8th, Judge Torres will file her reply, if any, and we can always count on John Deaton to explain what it all means. Last week, I predicted that Judge Torres would grant the SAC leave to file a formal motion for an interlocutory appeal. Now she can deny that motion and explain why she is doing so, as well as explain why Rakoff is completely wrong in his understanding of what she. Let's head over here where the good news is: a top-tier payment processor is getting set to launch support for Ripple XRP. BitPay has announced global support for XRP, allowing all BitPay customers to purchase, save, and spend XRP using any BitPay solution. BitPay, a pro-focused cryptocurrency exchange, has now added XRP choices in response to the increasing popularity of the XRP market.